Hi, and welcome to Fabric Bias. It is Sunday, July 21st, 2024, and I'm getting started on my checklist for the fabric file folders that I want to get done. I have mocked one up, which I showed in an earlier video. It is here, and it has credit card slots in it on both sides here. Put that one over there so you can see. And so I'm gonna change them slightly, and I actually did one already so that one side has, oh, so I started the project, realized I forgot to put the pockets in before I started sewing, and I kind of stared at it for a little while and went, I forgot something. And so I made one. I was like, okay, well, I'll just make this a regular file folder. So I did that one. And then I did one actually with the pockets in them. So this side has the book size pockets. This is a passport book size, and at least it fits my passport book. But I don't even know if they issue passport books anymore. We have both the books and the cards, and so I wanted a folder that would hold cards and books and then whatever paperwork in the middle. And the way I figured this out was, so it's one cut with the fabric for the body pieces. So I opted for these book pockets to be 8 inches high, fold in half to 4 inches to the final height. For the final height after seams, it's a little less than that. So that left me with enough to do 2 credit card slots. And initially, the first one I mocked up, I did 3.5 inches high, folded in half. But since I'm using an 8-inch cut over here, I just cut it in half to 2 4-inch cuts, and it's just fine there too. I kind of like it even better. So this is a 4-inch piece cut in half, or sorry, 4-inch piece folded in half, and then, you know, stitched and flipped on that. So slightly shorter than 4 inches when you get done on that. So that's what it's going to look like when it's done on all of these. This fabric, I pulled up the fabric so you could see the names of all of these. That fabric is called, here we go, Wood Blocks. See if hopefully that comes up clear in the screen. Wood Blocks by Hoffman International Fabrics. And again, all of this fabric is the fabric that was donated to us, so it gives me lots of time, you know, leeway to play with it, and not worry about the expense, which is really, really, really cool on that. This one is going to be one of the fabrics. It's called, well, it doesn't have a name. It says Copyright Peter Pan Fabrics, Inc. on that. And on this one, I actually really like the inside. It's a kind of a pretty blue, but I think I'm gonna go ahead and put the brown on the outside. Kind of has a gold shimmer. I don't know if you'll see it in the camera. And then this one didn't have a name. High Fashion Fabrics Inc. I looked, that was it. And this one, which I really thought was pretty, and it says Mary Ellen Hopkins Collection for SSI. I can't quite see if I got the last of that in the camera, but I hope I did. And then this last one that I'm getting ready to cut, and I'm going to show you the cuts right now, is here. I've got actually my ruler stuck on it, so I can't bring it too far up. But Pure Elegance by RJR Fashion Fabrics, I think is what it says. I don't have my glasses on. So my first cut is 12.5 inches by width of fabric. So after the 12.5 inches cut, then I'm going to cut again from width of fabric, which is going to leave me a leftover piece, a remnant, not a remnant, scrap piece. And this is going to be cut at 8 inches because I want my larger pocket to be 4 inches, about 4 inches tall. But there'll be a little shy of that once the seam's in place. I'm going to sew about an 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch seam on that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm going to cut that right there. And I'm just going to cut that piece off. There. And that's going to give me 3 pockets. So it'll give me 2 book pockets, one set of book pockets, which will be 3 pockets. And now I'm going to cut this piece 12.5 inches wide, and that should stay right there, should stay in my seam allowance. So I'm not going to cut it off. If it's pretty narrow, surprisingly. It's not like 1/2 inch thick or anything. So it should stay in my seam allowance. So I'm going to leave it on, and then I'm going to cut this here again. Now that my pieces are all lined up, I'm going to cut this at 12.5. So, and I like to measure twice, cut once, as the saying goes. So I'm going to do it mathematically first. 35 to 25 is 10, 11, 12.5. And then I'm going to count it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.5. And then I'm going to cut it. Because every time I don't do that, almost every time, this right here is the scrap, I make a mistake. So this one side here will become the 4-inch pocket that'll then eventually house the books. And I'm going to divide that into 3. I'm going to actually end up dividing this into 3 as well, into 3 pockets. But you could, divide it any way that you wanted it for whatever you're going to put in there. And of course, you could make this taller, narrower, whatever you wanted to do. So I'm going to just fold it right now, right sides together, because I'm going to be stitching. You leave the ends open because those are going to be in your seam allowances. I'm just going to stitch right across the bottom, and then I'll turn it right side up, press it, and then I'll top stitch across the top on that. And then on this one, so this is 8 inches by 12.5. I'm going to cut this in half to 2 4-inch pieces by 12.5. And I can eyeball that. I could see that that was 4 inches, 4 inches here. So I can cut that. And I'll do the same thing here, fold them right sides together, stitch along the long edge, and then I'll just turn it right side out and then press it and then top stitch these pieces for both of these. So that'll make my pockets prepared and ready to go. And I haven't done any of the stitching yet on these, so I'm going to stop right now and do that, and then I will be back. My pocket pieces are sewn, flipped around, and then top stitched. And what I've done, I've taken all my body pieces, since they were all different fabrics, they were all different widths, and so I made sure that all of my body pieces were at 42 inches wide. So originally I cut them 12.5 by width fabric, and I want them all to be kind of consistently at 42 inches for the next few step, because if they're too long, they could potentially drag on whatever you're storing them in, and then it doesn't work. A hanging file folder has to hang and clear the base on that. So once all the pocket pieces are stitched, I took my now 42-inch long fabric and folded it in half. I'm working with the inside now, and so I'm just going to fold that in half again. I'm just finding the center this way. If you want to find the exact center, then you just don't fold it. You leave whatever your seam allowance is here, match it up to the seam allowance. But mine is close enough. So I fold in half, and I finger pressed it and made a crease. And then from that center, which is going to be right here. Let me see if I can find a spot that you can see that. So there, this is my center right here, right here. I measured up from the center 1.5 inches, and I drew a line here, and then I went from the center here, I went 2.25 inches and 5.25 inches, and I drew a line on my fabric there. And so now I have my passport book pocket that I'm going to put on here. lined up on that 1.5 inch up from center pocket or center line here, and I have it clipped only to the top because I'm only going to sew it to this top layer. And I have the other 2 pockets lined up and clipped on those other 2 lines. And so my next job right now is to go ahead and stitch on just this layer. Now I can get that out of the way. On just this layer, I'm going to go ahead and stitch. And you can pin it all the way to make sure it stays straight, but because I have the line marked, I actually just visually make sure that my pocket stays lined up on that line as I stitch it down, and I don't need to pin on that. Same thing on these ones right here. So once I get that done, before I sew this up, I'm going to put some interfacing on at each of the ends. So I'll put a piece of interfacing. I'm using Shapeflex SF101. And I'm, oh, sorry, cat wants my attention. I'm going to put it right here so that I'll be catching that in the seam when I fold it over, and also so that my bar will be resting on something that's a little bit more reinforced. And then I'll also have one at the other side down here. I'll press a piece on this end as well. So about 1 inch, a little bit more than 1 inch, just to make sure I catch that when I fold. Eventually this will be folded over and the bar will be hanging in there, of course, when it's right side out. So right now I'm going to go stitch my pockets on, and then I'm going to go press my interfacing on, and then I'll be able to stitch the body on around, leaving, of course, a turning gap. Okay, so I have all the bases sewn on. So there's my openings. And I'm going to measure over 4 1/4 from my one edge here, because I have a 1/4 inch seam and I want my pockets to be 4 inches. So I'm going to measure 4 1/4 here and mark. And then I'm going to go to 4 more inches from there, or 8 1/4 inches from this side here. And I'm going to mark again, and that'll leave me 4 1/4 on this side. And that will make each of my pockets about 4 inches wide, which is plenty wide for the credit card slots, because these are about 3 inches. And then for the passport books, also plenty wide as well, because it gives it plenty of room to slide in there, slide it out, and if they get a little bit thicker, it should still fit, I think. I don't know. Mine are empty, so. So there they are. I'm going to go ahead and, again, open back up again, because I only want to stitch on the one body piece, and I'm going to go stitch those lines in place. And then I'll catch up the other 2 pieces that I have yet to sew, and I'll be ready to press on my interfacing. So, and here I go. Okay, the pockets are all stitched on to the one side of the fabric, and then I have also pressed the Shapeflex about 1/4 inch away from each end. I probably didn't have to do that on this, and this is the folded end here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave my turning gap on this short end here, and I'm just going to stitch up all the way up the side here, turn, back stitch my corners, come up here and stop and back stitch. I'm going to leave myself a nice generous opening, because it doesn't have to be small and it's easier to turn. And then I'll come over here, and once I have my gap, I'll turn and go this way. Again, back stitching the beginning and the end, and I like to back stitch my corners on that. And so I'm going to take care of that on these 3 that are left to do. Once I'm done stitching them, I'll clip my corners, and then I will turn them right side out and press them. So I'm going to go take care of that right now. All right, everything is stitched right sides out. So once you have your corners clipped, you've turned it right side out through the turning gap. You don't need to close the turning gap, because you'll catch it in this step right here. What you want to do is take one of your original folders and center it on the body piece, on the inside of the body piece. And then you're going to fold over the end flaps here and press them into place. And once you've got that done, there, what I like to do is just kind of look and see if it actually is the right size. on that. So there it is, matching there. Pretty close, maybe a hair short, but that's okay. And so I've got all of them done like that with the ends folded in. I'm going to top stitch right along here, and that's going to leave me a pretty decent sized channel on this one. But I have another one. This one, the fabric was shorter, so it came out a little bit tighter. So on this one, I'm going to be really careful to catch really close here when I stitch that down on that, so that I can make sure that my metal bar will fit in there. But still, there we go. Once I get that done, I'm going to be done. So let me go get that done. And they're done. All of them done with the credit card slots on the one side and the passbook size pockets on the other side on all of them. There they are. And all the extras. So the other thing that I've also gotten done here is this project. So this is my 12 days of Christmas, or 12 months of Christmas, and I have all the prep work done on this at this point. So I'm going to change my to-do list now to, let's see, I'm going to, sorry about the light, check off fabric file folders, and I'm going to change this prep here to sew. So I'm going to start sewing those. I'm not, again, shooting to get all 6 of those bags done, but I'm going to get some of them done, and so changing that to sew. Got a check mark. I got 2 check marks on ironing fabric. That one's done, and I technically have a check mark here, but I've changed it to sew. So very cool. I'm going to keep going on that, and I'll see you next time. I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that wherever and whenever you're at, you're having a great time, and thanks for watching.